one is the Spammy for favorite small press and mainstream independent 2011 interior. Cover dated American comic book ink work over another pencil artist, non-Marvel or DC work. Gary Erskine for G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. Todd McFarlane for Haunt and Spawn. Sal Regla for Magdalena, Blood of the Lamb, Mysterious Ways. And Dexter Vines for Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 9. And the winner is Dexter Vines.
The music coming in.
Play a wedding song.
And I'm even wearing my 4 inches. All right, congratulations.
Hello all. I would first like to thank the Inkwell Awards and everybody who voted for me. I really love working on the book. The artist George Genty, one of my best friends. So it's always fun, to work with a good friend, a good artist, and then also to be recognized for it. So I really appreciate it. And just the Inkwell Awards in general, I love that they bring attention to the art of inking. I know a lot of pencilers in the business, they appreciate a good ink. So when they get one, they try to hang on. So it's definitely good to know that and to appreciate it. Now, if we can just work on the Eisners to recognize us as well, that would be also a great thing. So keep it short and simple. Thank you again.
Next up is the All-in-One Award for favorite artist known for inking her own pencil work in 2011 interior cover dated American comic book material. Jordy Bernay for Jonah Hex American Vampire. Cliff Chang for Wonder Woman. Sorry. Sure.
Sorry.
Francis Manifold for Flash. Terry Moore for Rachel Rising. Stan Sakai for Usagi Yojimbo, J.H. Williams III for Batwoman. And the winner is J.H. Williams III. Jim could not make the show to accept this award personally, but he made the following statement. It's short. It's an absolute honor to have garnered this unique award. I thank all who voted for me. It's this kind of acknowledgement that many others deserve but may not ever see, so I'm extremely grateful for this kind of recognition. Okay. Next up is the Joe Sinnott Award, a Hall of Fame designation for an inking career in American comic books of outstanding accomplishment, lifetime achievement, 25 years minimum, 2 winners chosen annually. And the nominees are Murphy Anderson, Dick Ayers, John Beatty, Frank Giacoa, Dan Green, Mark McKenna, Bob McLeod, sorry, Tom Palmer, Joseph Rubenstein, Joe Simon, and Scott Williams. And now to present our first, our first Joe Sinnott Hall of Fame Award recipient, Comic Art House art rep and former Inkwell committee member, Bob Shaw.
You're supposed to wait.
I'm still Dexter.
You missed already.
Yeah.
All right.
Congratulations.
How you doing? A couple weeks ago, Bob called me up and said, would you mind presenting Mark McKenna with the Hall of Fame Award? I said, I'm an art rep. Couldn't you find somebody better? And Mark's worked with so many pencilers over the years. It's crazy. He's worked with Billy Tucci. He's worked with Greg Capullo. He's worked with a laundry list of names that would be Hall of Fame qualified as it is. Mark is very deserving of this award. He's a good friend. He's a little insane. I think he did too much drugs during the 70s. Got up a banana tail on a planet full of pumpkins from the Nip and Light. I don't know. I think he dropped a lot of ass and went to Studio 51 way too much. But in all seriousness, Mark is one of those guys that just, he always gets the job done. He doesn't shortchange a page. The blacks always look crisp. They're always sharp. He puts his all into it, whether it's for a commission for a customer, whether it's for Marvel, whether it's for DC, or whether it's for his own personal projects. When you get something from Mark, you're getting 100% of what he is capable of. There's a lot of people in this industry that just don't take it as seriously as he does, or have as much love or as creativity as he does for this industry. A lot of people shortchange it. They'll toss in pages that aren't sharp. They freehand an elliptical, and they just don't take care of things the way they should, and they don't respect the pencilers. Mark will make an average penciler look great. He'll make a brilliant penciler look incredible. I'm honored to be introducing Mark McKenna to the Hall of Fame. He's an incredible friend. I'm honored to know him, and Mark, you're well deserving.
Thank you. Most people don't
Thanks,
know.
bro.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Well spoken. Thanks. This is pretty cool. I'll give you a little story. 29 years ago, I was ready to graduate from the School of Visual Arts with my Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree, and I had no idea what I was doing with it. I had Will Eisner as a teacher, and as much, hey, there you go. This beautiful thing. Will Eisner was a teacher of mine, and while I loved the man, I felt like I wasn't getting enough of a sense of the business at the time. So I actually got out of comic book. My mind, I started changing what I wanted to do. I became an animation major at Visual Arts, and then after 2 years of doing that and trying to draw 770 drawings for 1 minute animation, I think I had enough of that, So I went to Marshall Arisman, who was the chairman of the illustration department, and he said, well, what do you want to do? You're going to get your degree. And I said, I want to get back into comic books again. I'm just not sure where to go with it. And he said, we have a teacher here who teaches perspective. His name is Sal Almendola. He's also a new talent coordinator at DC Comics. And I got to meet Sal. I think that's the best thing that happened with that $12,000 degree is I got to meet Sal Almendola, who basically would take me into the offices, and he would do classes on Friday mornings, I think once a month or once every other week. You guys remember that at all? Yeah. Yeah, Sal was great at that stuff. So what I would do, I would go in, I would live in Long Island, I would go in every other week to the classes on Friday, and then I would double dip. I would go to Marvel and show my samples from DC to Marvel. Yeah, I had to do that. And Elliot Brown was kind of the new talent coordinator at Marvel Comics at the time. And Elliot, I had told Elliot I was taking classes at DC, and what he did was he would show my stuff to John Romita Sr., who was at the time the art director. Keep it down over there, will you please? So what happened one day, I was working in an art supply store after I had gotten out of school. This is what my degree got me, is an art supply job. And I get a call on the phone at the art supply store, and it's John Romita Sr. And he says, I'm looking for Mark McKenna. I said, get the hell out of here. You're not John Romita. Is this Bill? So he actually offered me a job to be a staff, a Romita's Raider, if you will. It was an art corrections guy that would work there. But I was living 60 miles out in Long Island, and they were offering me $4.50 an hour, which was, I guess, minimum wage at the time, So I had to pass on it. And he called me 6 months later, and I had to say the same thing to him. And the third time he called me, he says, I got to get you in here, or I got to take your name off the list. And I said, well, it's difficult for me to be able to afford this. And he said, well, how about if I get you some assisting work? I said, yes, I would, of course I would do it. So when I got into Marvel at the time, I was there for about a year and a half. I was fortunate, of course, to meet a lot of guys I grew up with, and I got to work with Joe Sinnott at one point, even though I don't think he knew that. He had channeled in some of the backgrounds through the offices, and I got to work with him. I worked with Bob Layton, I worked with Vinnie Coletta, I worked with Al Milgram, I worked with Brett Breeding, I worked with a lot of guys who some didn't teach me. I would hope that I would learn more from them. I was basically trying to understand the stuff and learn, but the most I learned from really was from John Romita, watching him work, in the offices. I learned how to drag a brush and a pen, and I was living in Queens at the time, taking the N train back and forth to New York, and I was living with the assistant art director, Tom Morgan, at the time. And when we worked up at Marvel, I ate crap there, basically. I was there from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the morning until the security guard said, dude, you gotta go home. And I would take back the N train and go back to my apartment, and then we'd work again until 3 or 4 in the morning. And I did this for about a year and a half because I was very devoted at that time. So, so then I got to, after that, I went to Marvel. After John hired me, they would never hire me for a job. I was always the art corrections guy. And I used to take my art supplies I used to take my art samples back to DC now, so I went full circle. So one time I went to go meet Joe Orlando. He was doing special projects editing up there, and it was lunchtime, and I actually went to go show him my samples. He wasn't in the office at lunchtime. Karen Berger was in the office at lunchtime, who at the time was starting a new Dr. Fate series. And I gave her my samples. A day later, she calls me up, says we're doing a new Dr. Fate book with Mark DeMattis and Sean McManus. I said, DeMattis, McManus, McKenna, you got to do this, right? So I actually took the book on. It was my first regular job in comics, and I signed a contract. I was under DC for 4 years, and I stayed there until Marvel then called me back, and I started doing Doctor Strange. So, and I met my wife at Marvel Comics, and she worked in accounting at the time, and she knew how much money I didn't make. She still married me. 23 years with her this year. I want to thank the committee for having me up here. Thank you to Sheldon for putting on the awards, housing, and thanks for the voting public. Thank you.
Bob left, so thank